Artificial intelligence is playing an increasingly important role in the way that new drugs are discovered. It's radically changing how this process works and speeding up the development of new therapies. To talk more about it, I was recently joined on stage by two pioneers in the field. I'm Jennifer Strong, and this is Shift.
Now here on the steering column is a device called Auto Cruise. You simply set the speed you want.
Self-driving robo-taxis are already on the road in 2 U.S. cities.
As the disc rotates, a mirror reflects the light in the way that depends on how the signal was recorded.
This is the 100 terabyte Insilico. I present to you Electro, the Mortal Man.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I would say that one of my greatest skills is my ability to interact with humans.
This episode was taped in front of a live audience at the Human X conference in Las Vegas.
Hi, Sam Ransbotham here. In each episode of Me, Myself, and AI, my co-host Shervin Kodabanda and I talk with leaders from organizations like Shopify, NASA, GitHub, and Amnesty International. We explore how organizations achieve success with generative AI and what challenges and ethical considerations they face along the way. Whether you're leading a strategic technology function, deploying ML solutions, or simply curious about what's behind the hype, Me, Myself, and AI delivers actionable insights for value with artificial intelligence, while sharing the backstories of people who make this technology work. Listen to Me, Myself, and AI wherever you stream podcasts.
This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting to get your money back, which turned into worrying about getting your money back. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes today and help you get up to a $4,000 refund advance loan fast. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Refund has $0 loan fees and 0% APR. Refund advance loans may be issued by First Century Bank N.A. or WebBank. Terms apply, subject to credit approval.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for getting up and joining us. I'm Jennifer Strong. I'm a journalist at the intersection of tech and society, and I'm very excited to be joined by these two gentlemen. Alex, do you want to introduce a bit more about what you do, and then go to Mike?
Sure. So happy to be here. Alex Zhavoronkov. I am the founder and CEO of Insilico Medicine. I am personally religiously focused on aging research, but the company is focused on the applications of generative AI for drug discovery and development. Now we have taken 22 drugs into developmental candidate stage, and 10 have reached clinical trials. One has completed phase 2A clinical trial successfully. So very happy about that.
And I'm Mike Nally. I'm the CEO of Generate Biomedicines. Generate's a company that was founded in 2018, largely with a premise that through a data-driven approach, we could understand biology in ways the human mind has not been able to understand it historically. One of the things that we oftentimes lose sight of, given the fact that we've been staring at biology for all of our existence, is we probably only understand about 5 to 10%. And the search space of biology is extraordinarily large. So we spend our time thinking about proteins, which are kind of the workhorses of biology. The average protein is 200 amino acids long. There are 20 natural amino acids. So the combinatorial possibilities is 20 to the 200th power. That's more than the atoms in the universe cubed. And so despite the majesty of nature, we've only sampled a small part of the potential combinations that biology opens up to us. And with these sort of technologies, we're starting to understand biology in just really, really profound ways that we believe will transform the course of human health over the course of the next decade.
All right, so probably don't have to tell any of you here that drug discovery is notoriously hard. wildly expensive, incredibly time-consuming. But I still think in order to understand what these two gentlemen are doing, it's going to be helpful to know a little bit about how it's been done.
So in order to understand what we do, you actually need to understand the drug discovery and development process. And by the way, most of the folks in the tech industry do not understand that, even those that jump into AI drug discovery very prematurely. So it took me 5 years to learn. Here you've got a veteran who knows this process inside out. So I'll just try to very quickly explain how it looks like. So you need to first understand why the disease happens and what drives the disease. For most diseases, we actually don't know. Like Alzheimer's, go figure. We still don't know what the ultimate criminal is, the protein target that is driving the disease. So first, you need to identify protein targets. You need to find those thieves that are causing the problem. To do that, you need to look at the entire lifespan data. So from cradle to the grave, understanding how the biology happens, comparing norm to disease. And there are many, many, many ways to utilize human clinical data to understand how to find this needle in a haystack, because there is 22,000 genes, order of magnitude more proteins out there and other possible targets. You need to pick one. That process is called target discovery, and that's where we use multiple types of AI to identify the target. That's what our company was actually built on. And then once you identified this protein, this key driver of the disease, you need to figure out a way how to disable it. So you can do it either using an antibody or a biologic or a peptide and design something that will catch it and disable it. You can use multiple forms of generative AI for that, or you design a small molecule. So think aspirin or whatever your favorite drug from CVS is. That drug would also come and disable this ultimate criminal. And then once you identify this protein target and the molecule that is going to disable it, you need to figure out which patient is going to respond to that therapy, because we are all different. You need to time it. You need to understand the dose. You need to understand the toxicity profile that the patient is going to tolerate, because usually if you give too much of a drug, it's going to be very toxic. Even like sugar or water would be toxic at high levels. If you don't give too little, it's not going to work. So that's where AI also comes out as a very powerful ally. And what you also need to understand is that for every step of the way, you need to conduct preclinical and clinical experiments. Because unlike in voice, video, text, something that we can very quickly evaluate as humans from generative AI, here, even the smartest medicinal chemists, smartest doctors that spend their entire lives studying this area, if they look at the output of the generative tool, they would not be able to tell. So you always have to perform the experiment. And that's what we do. We basically do everything in silico, end to end. We have a phenomenal robotics facility that helps you accelerate some of those processes. And then you actually have to do the clinical trials to see if your generative AI worked and all the generation conditions were met.
I agree with everything that Alex just noted. I think if we zoom out to the 30,000-foot view, drug discovery has been a completely artisanal process. It's been a trial and error process where you have a probability of success of about 5 to 10% historically. And it's been down to an individual genius or a team of geniuses to come up with the biological hypothesis that Alex talked about, and then find a molecule and randomly test through an array of different tests to try and get to an outcome. And I think if you just actually step back and you think about us studying biology in high school, look at a biology textbook. It's pictures. It's not formulas. It's not math. If you open a physics textbook, it's all math. We've never been able to distill biology down to the mathematical underpinnings. And so I think why Alex and I are so excited about this moment in time is that for the first time, we're starting to get to the mathematical underpinnings through the help of machines of biology. And if you think about the course of human history, whenever complex fields become engineerable, industrial revolutions occur. And we've seen this with Bernoulli's principle for flight. We've seen this with Ohm's law in electric circuits. We've seen this through semiconductors. We've never seen this in biology. And what's so exciting for those in the field is we haven't solved biology by any means. We don't have the right measurements. We don't have the depth of information and data that it would take to solve it. But if we only know 5 to 10% today, And if we were able to double that over the course of the next decade, just think about the diseases we'd cure. Think about the treatments we could engender. And that's what's so exciting about this moment in time, is for the first time, we're starting to distill this down to its basic essence. And if you put the computer at the center of the discovery process versus an artisanal approach, you can never scale Leonardo da Vinci. There's been one. You can't scale the genius of these drug discoverers. The same drug hunters consistently find success. As the computer becomes part of this, what you're introducing for the first time in this industry are economies of scale. And in the tech industry, this is something that's very, very familiar. In the drug industry, this is a completely foreign concept. Scale has been the enemy of innovation. And for the first time, we're starting to see the benefits of scale in drug discovery.
So we've talked a little bit about what you do. Why are you doing it? What brought you into this field? Alex?
So for me, I actually come from an IT background. So like many of you, my first 2 degrees were in computer science. And I started originally at the GPU company called ATI that got acquired by AMD. Made a lot of money when I was in my early 20s. And I thought, what is the biggest problem everyone has and that I have? The biggest problem that I realized on this planet is aging. Because currently, whatever you do, regardless of how high you go, after 40, some after 30, everything goes downhill. Right? So you cannot go for continuous improvement. So regardless of how hard you work, how much effort you put in, you can convert time into money, but you cannot convert money into time. And humans are very, very special beings, right? Video games were not popular until people introduced the score. So we kind of value everything with money, with some kind of measurement, but we don't really value the time left. And I really want to figure out how to create more quality-adjusted life years for everybody. That's the ultimate objective, and that should be the objective function for all of you as well. If you think about what's important in life, life is probably the most important currency that we have. So let's figure out how to create more life.
So I came at this almost from the opposite side. I grew up outside of New York City thinking investment banking was the path to salvation, was quickly disillusioned after my first year of 20-hour work days and making money for rich people, where I kind of stepped back and said, there has to be a greater purpose here. And I was lucky I worked in life sciences and on the pharmaceutical industry. And in talking to executives, you'd hear these stories of the contributions you could make to curing cancer, in certain types of cancer, to eliminating cardiovascular risk factors. And if I thought about what actually fuels me as a human being, it's impact. And been fortunate during the course of my career, I spent 18 years at Merck, the large pharmaceutical company, to work on some of the most transformational therapies the world's ever seen. We took lung cancer from a death sentence of a 5% survival rate and quintupled that in the last decade. We worked on eliminating cervical cancer. We worked on reducing heart attacks and strokes in very material ways, stopping the transmission of HIV. And when you think about that global impact, because with each of these conditions, obviously there's the individual circumstance that you're actually protecting against, but there's also the family, there's the societal, the community dynamics, and there's no greater industry, if you can do it well, to change the course of human well-being than life sciences. And when I step back and I think about why this is such a special time, we've been actually awful at it. The pharmaceutical industry actually has a failing business model. R&D productivity has been going down for 4 decades in a row, and pricing practices actually limit the access to the most innovative medicines. With the help of technology, I believe we're going to see a revolution in R&D productivity, and that productivity will allow us to actually rethink access models and the business model entirely for it. And so I think this is actually, if you think about what the next decade, the next 2 decades will be, this is the area, and this is what you hear from a lot of the folks that are making the large language models. The biggest impact is going to be in biology and on human health and in drugs. And we're seeing the very early signals of that with companies like Alex's, with hopefully companies like mine. But the signals, there's always this debate that we wrestle with is it hype or is it reality? I think those that work on it on a daily basis see the substance and see how transformative this is going to be for humanity.
This episode is brought to you by Tools and Weapons, the podcast exploring technology's impact on our changing world. hosted by Microsoft's Vice Chair and President, Brad Smith. Across 3 exclusive conversations celebrating the company's 50th anniversary, Microsoft's CEOs Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, and Satya Nadella share the untold stories, big dreams, and relentless drive that's fueled a digital revolution. Hear why each of them thinks that the revolution may be at its most exciting point yet. Find the CEO series and other impactful conversations with government, business, and cultural leaders by searching for Tools and Weapons, wherever you listen to podcasts.
The world's hardest problems can't wait. Food security, energy resilience, the digital divide. I'm Astro Teller. For 15 years, I've worked with inventors and engineers to tackle the seemingly impossible. In the Moonshot podcast, we take you inside X, Google's Moonshot Factory, giving you unprecedented access to the messy, exhilarating journey of turning science fiction into reality. This is the Moonshot Podcast. Out now wherever you listen.
All right, so what's the most significant opportunity with AI drug discovery that's currently blocked, and what's blocking it?
Wow. I think the reality is so our technology that we work on is disease area agnostic and protein modality agnostic. Our biggest challenge is the opportunity cost of what to pursue. Much like Alex, we're working on 20 different programs. Half of those are with partners. Half of those are an internal pipeline. We're a relatively small organization, so if you think about the productivity it takes to shepherd 20 programs, we're doing it with a workforce 1/40th the size of what you would see in a large company. And so for us, the biggest question we're always wrestling with is, where do we focus the attention? Because we can't cure all diseases at once. So we've chosen, based on expertise within our organization, oncology, infectious disease, and immunology. Mm-hmm. And what's so exciting about this is we're starting to see translation at a rate. The historical timelines from concept to approval was about a 15-year timeline. Our first program will be 8 years, is what we're projecting. So we're cutting that in half. The cost of that program is a fraction of what it would be using traditional technologies. And so those are really encouraging statistics. But ultimately, what you really care about is quality. What you really care about is, are you doing something that benefits patients in a differential fashion? And not only are we able to do things faster, not only are we seeing things done cheaper, but we're seeing answers that were really nearly impossible or very extraordinarily hard to get to using traditional techniques. And I think, for us, what's exciting, but what's also a challenge is, where do you direct this technology in what order to have the greatest impact on humanity?
So in our case, I think that the opportunity and the challenge are slightly different. So the biggest challenge in our industry is experimental validation. So humans cannot look at the molecule and say if it's good or not. You need to test. The opportunity there, and also another challenge, is we are introducing significant amount of automation into the game. So I built a freaking huge, massive, fully robotic autonomous lab that allows you to throw in a biological sample. The lab will grind it, process it, image it, get multiple types of omics from it, and very rapidly identify protein targets, select tool compounds, and test. And then you get the readouts. And that gives you a little bit of torque. It can also help you do indication expansion. For example, if you know that the drug works in one disease, you can very quickly see if it may have the potential to work in other diseases. So also automation can help a lot. However, you still need to perform a lot of experiments. So AI can help you go from 0 to 100 in like 2 seconds. So we demonstrated at the preclinical level that we shave off approximately 2.5, 3 years from the drug discovery cycle across 22 programs that we have put into the developmental candidate stage and 10 programs that went into clinic. But once you are in a clinic or close to clinic, you need to move with the speed of traffic, because there you've got traffic signs. So one of the challenges is also regulation. So in the ideal world, it would be great to do things a little bit quicker if you have proven yourself many times over that you can deliver really safe and high-quality drugs. And maybe this new administration that came in the US is going to marginally or maybe significantly improve this process. We're going to see. and other countries may follow because US is always the leader in this field in regulation. And that's the roadblock, right? So you cannot move faster with the speed of traffic, and for a good reason. The greatest opportunities that I see in AI drug discovery are aging. So now massive AI models, transformers, diffusion models allow you to build what I call life models, trying to understand life from cradle to the grave in healthy people, and then look at the breaking points where aging becomes disease. And you can now target those dual-purpose criminals, so to speak, that are implicated in aging and disease, develop them as drugs, and then potentially expand the range of applications and maybe go even into prevention. You've seen that already happening with GLP-1s. How many of you are on GLP-1 right now? Don't be shy. Come on. Well, I am. And there are a bunch of others. Imagine GLP-1 for the brain. Imagine GLP-1 for the liver. Imagine GLP-1 for the muscle, for the bone, for your skin. That is the future that we want to build with Insilico tools. And that's why some of my drugs have always dual purpose, including the lead program. I think another opportunity is robotics. So I think robotics is going to change our daily life dramatically. So I deployed my first humanoid in the lab already with a partner-developed platform. And another opportunity is definitely quantum computing. So maybe 5 years out, maybe 8 years out, but it's going to happen. So you need to be quantum friendly.
One thing that Alex said that I think is really important, AI is not a panacea for all parts of this process at this point. And let's just be very, very clear. It doesn't solve every element of it. We're in a highly regulated industry, and hallucinations may mean patient safety issues. Part of what we have to do is push the frontiers of technology, but also keep patient safety as a sacrosanct ideal. Because the worst thing we could do is put patient safety at risk. It would set this movement back a decade if we were reckless. And I think, this is where we have to work very carefully with the regulators, where to take risk and where not to take risk, because we have to keep the patient at the center of these sort of processes.
We have sailed through our time here, folks. I was hoping we could dig a bit more into safety too, but because we're in our final 2 minutes here, are there particular trends that you're watching from where you sit that you'd like to unpack a bit for us?
The hardest part about life sciences is the lead times. Unlike releasing a new technology, consumers have access to it immediately. When we invent technology, the technologies that Alex is talking about, the technologies that are latest are 5 years old. And so we're dealing with GPT-1 technologies, not GPT-4 technologies. What we're seeing in our own labs is truly exponential improvements over time. It's hard to judge today's, the earliest products as the current state of affairs for where the technologies actually sit. And I think that's just something that's commonly masked because we're so used to the technology analogs, but as you apply it to drug discovery, the process is just fundamentally different and longer.
So I agree. I think that currently GPTization of the world is going to dramatically transform every area. Drug discovery is also one of those. So with one coder, you can do what 10 coders used to achieve in longer time. So in many areas, you are going to see massive acceleration. In drug discovery, you are not going to see miracles. You are going to see dramatic acceleration, but dramatic acceleration maybe 50% reduction in timelines. And that would be beautiful. And also maybe new modalities are going to open. You're going to see more innovative drugs out there, not only incremental innovation. But what we really need is more focus on this area, because people are very focused in AI on other things. There are very, very few that are going into AI drug discovery and doing it well. So we actually need you to come into our field and start contributing and start learning.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate you, and thank you all for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
This episode was produced by me and Emma Cillekens and mixed by Garret Lang, with original music from him and Jacob Gorski. Thanks for listening. I'm Jennifer Strong.
From PRX.